Good late afternoon or early evening on this Friday, April 22nd at 5:30. I say Shabbat Shalom to my Jewish sisters and brothers. This is a special night. Let me put the light on. Lightning here. Yes. I always take a couple of minutes to calm myself down, say my prayers, and ask God what He wants me to speak to you specifically about. Though I am following the sequence of my book, Committed to Love, I want to welcome the couple of new. I'm very good with faces and names, so I do know who's new and who's been with me. And every day I'm getting new people. But some are going on maybe for 10 minutes. I've had some phone calls that people are coming on for 10 minutes and then they put it down, they come back later, or not everybody has the time I have to do what I'm doing in general. You have very busy lives in a very busy, hectic world. So I don't expect everybody's world to stop at 5:30 to 6 o'clock while Susan Mintz talks into her phone. No. But I know somehow the word is getting out and I'm grateful. And yes, you can say to your friends or not friends or family or no family and say, there is a woman named Susan Mintz in Boca Raton, Florida, who at 5:30 talks into her phone and reads from her book. Yes. The beginning of my book, and I always will give you a little summary also of what's transpired, not only for people to get caught up with, but just because I have to stay on task. The first few chapters were definitely about my relationship with Jeffrey, my marriage, his bisexuality, confronting my fears that AIDS could happen, and it did in 1992, in the hospital on June 20th, no more lies, frustration, definitely, questioning God, everything that would go into a long-term illness. And I'm not trying to say that shock doesn't hit you if somebody dies quickly or they're in an accident. Of course, grief is grief, loss is loss. But I'm trying to prepare you with some of my chapters as to how I managed to get through these difficult 2 years with tools, with specifics that I was given gifts with, being focused and disciplined and very organized and structured. That's where my strong suits lied anywhere. So when Jeff was ill, as rough as it was, and I call it manageable chaos, there was never stability. But because I was able to deal with it in a way that suit my own nature, it made it a little bit easier. But I will say there was nothing easy. Where one chapter I'm okay, the next moment I'm a mess. So there's nothing going to be straightforward in this book, because there's nothing going to be straightforward in a long-term illness. And I have to gear that to a long-term illness because that's what I dealt with. I'm not walking in anybody else's shoes, and neither should you. You have one life's journey. You make your choices, you accept them, and you live with them. And that's what I have. And 30 years after his passing, I have no regrets. I would do it all over again because nobody twisted my arm to make these choices. God gave me assignments. God gives you assignments. That to me is what life is about. They're assignments. I've been able to complete most of the ones, I'd say, so far, but I think He's still got a couple more left for me to do. And one is, you know what I will always say, if you reach for the star, if you reach for the moon, you might get a star. I want that star, and I want the moon, and I'm never going to give up on my dreams, and neither should you. My big dream is to see my story told before the world in a series, because it is worthy of it. This story is worthy to touch tens and hundreds of millions of people, not because it's my story, but because of the valuable information about love, loss, and going forward. But this story is powerful. It is meant to be made into something bigger than just a book. But writing is the key to it. You must write. You must write as long as you have something to think about or something to deal with or something that's going on in your life. The constant theme in this 24 chapters is writing. So as I said, the first few chapters were about Jeff's and my relationship. And then there was about questioning God and the frustration. And yesterday's reading was so good because it was putting personal touches in an impersonal environment, of which I said that there's nothing more cold and sterile than a hospital room. There's nothing more cold and sterile, perhaps, than long-term facility, though they're wonderful, many of them. You're still seeing someone you love in a long-term care skilled facility can be very hard. And also hospice. Well, hospice is a whole different wonderful it's a whole different protocol. But what you want to do is make the environment, no matter where it is, feel like the person's with you. They're in a home. There's love and warmth. And that's what I did with Jeffrey. I brought his meals to him because he wouldn't eat hospital food. I'm only about 9-10 days into this whole thing. From June 20th when he was in the hospital to now. I mean, we're talking about 9-10 days. So I was bringing him his food to get him to eat. I had pictures all over the room. We had a private room because nobody wanted to, everybody was dressed up like it was COVID right now. When it was first pandemic, everybody was scared to death. And so I had artwork all over, I had pictures all over the place. I decorated. And when people came, one of the things I I said, don't bring chocolates, don't bring flowers, don't wear perfume, because it could affect their diet or they might be sensitive. And in the next breath, I'm saying, chocolates, bring perfume. So there's some things I'm a little bit off on, but you get the gist. Must be mindful of the place's protocols. You must be mindful of what your loved one or friend wants. And you have to also know what you can do. I could make Jeff's life there better by bringing my home into his, by bringing his food he loved to him. But I also didn't have any other responsibilities but to take care of myself and to take care of him. And I will say, and I always read the last paragraph or two of the previous chapter. And the previous chapter was personal touches in an impersonal environment. The one last paragraph that I think is so important, besides bringing him food and making the room look good and pictures and all that, there was one other thing I could do for you, Jeff, that might speed up your recovery. I had to show you that I was taking care of myself. So frequently, when a loved one is ill, all the energy, of course, is on them, and it's not the caregiver. And once somebody gets ill, you do become the caregiver, if that so be your lot in life, let's say. Mine was I became a caregiver. I was no good to him or his parents if I didn't get my own act together. You needed me more than ever, and seeing you look the way I did, and when you saw me look the way I did, was the worst thing I could be doing for him. I remember the day he looked at me and said, quote, Susan, I'm the one who is sick. Please look like the woman I need to have back in my life. Please look like the woman I need back in my life, quote, end quote. That was my wake-up call. You deserved the wife you had always known, and I wouldn't fail you. From now on, when you saw me come into your room, I looked like the lady you always admired and loved. I would put on your favorite perfume, don't do it, wore something pretty and bright, and looked like I was going to make it through this time too. Though I was emotionally and physically exhausted, I looked and acted like the woman you needed back. You had many things to live for. and I was one of them. And that's so important. Please take the time to take care of yourself also. Jeff was always so proud of me, and the way he would look at me and the compliments. I was so used to flattery anyway. I was used to flattery anyway. I love flattery. Can never get enough. I don't care if it's a woman or just me. I love compliments. And he always loved the way I looked. So for me to look anything like that was hurting him a lot because he knew what toll this was taking on me. And so, my darling, you gave me a challenge during those 2 weeks. He was in there for 2 weeks, and I'll tell you about how we got him home another time. But I think your hospital room looked pretty, I'll say darn good. I used the other word last night, which might have offended some people, but it was a lot stronger than darn. This room was our home for a while, and you were surrounded with people who loved you. Delicious home-cooked meals. I ate the hospital food because it was what I never used to eat. Festive decorations, and most of all, hope. That was the one thing I truly wanted to give you. I tried to keep things as comfortable as possible here and at home. And whenever you returned to our house, it would look just as beautiful as you remembered. We were going to make it together. Okay, Friday, April 22nd. I think I actually have the description thing down pretty good now, too, as well as the lightning. Hello, Stephanie. Your name doesn't look familiar, but God bless you. Thank you. Here we go. Chapter 10. This is probably one of the most important things you're ever going to learn. The beginning was about Jeff and myself. The whole book is about Jeff and myself. But certain chapters are going to be what I'm going to say to you is, these are the tools, the skills. These are the things I did that made this horrible time sometimes bearable. And I'm saying sometimes bearable because I am all over the place in this book. One time I'm together, one time I'm not. Maybe I'm like that in my life. Probably people who know me would say she's like this anyway. Chapter 10, and also SusanMintz.com. Go to the books, go to the website, SusanMintz.com. You'll learn everything you need to know on the books page, on the media page. I've done so many interviews. It's all there. Photos, everything you need to know. And the books are available on Barnes & Noble and Amazon. That's the end of my sales pitch. Chapter 10, prioritize and organize. Now, if you're not born with those gifts, many people aren't. I happen to be a very highly functional, prioritized and organized person, which makes me very difficult as a friend. And my friends will tell you that, because I don't set a bar higher for you. I set a bar higher for myself. I am always competing with me. That's it. I am extremely organized. Friday, July 3rd, 1992. This is 13 days into it. Dear Jeff, these are my journals I'm transposing. Here we go. I am both apprehensive and excited at the same time. I feel like I am bringing a baby home instead of my husband. I'll be bringing him home on July 4th, but let's just continue. I feel like I am bringing a baby home instead of my husband. It is a catch-22. Hear me. The hospital gave me a sense of security because you were safe and you were being taken care of there. Though I desperately wanted you home, I have mixed emotions about today. I've planned ahead for your homecoming because I wanted you to feel comfortable and relaxed when you came back from the hospital. Prioritizing everything regarding your comfort and well-being are my major concerns. I feel compassion for what you have been through, and I want to be as considerate of your needs as possible. I am writing everything down in detail and will be, quote, rigidly flexible. If that's not the oxymoron of your life, rigidly flexible. The other one is manageable chaos. But I am writing everything down in detail in my journals, which were transposed years later to this book. And I will be, quote, rigidly flexible, end quote, in sticking to my lists. I've gone through the house and gathered up all of your previous medications and supplies, because he was home for several weeks before the diagnosis. I dated, named, and sealed them in individual Ziploc bags. Since I didn't want you to see these items when you came home, I placed them away in the closet in a large see-through plastic blanket box. The compressor for your daily inhalation treatments was delivered and put in the laundry room. Your refrigerated medications are dated and stored in a separate bin away from the food. I brought your personal belongings home from the hospital. Then I went back and signed the discharge papers, filled your prescriptions, obtained the doctor's phone numbers, and finally pick you up. So I must be going into July 4th, but I'm not quite there yet. It is a holiday weekend, and there aren't many people at the hospital. I need to be prepared for any emergency or crisis that could arise. So hear me. I put his previous medications out of the way and dated everything. The compressor for his inhalation treatments was delivered. I put that away. His refrigerated medications were put away from the food. And his personal, I brought his personal belongings in. I went back, signed the papers. And that was it. It was extremely hot. Here I'm going to stop. So there were very few people around a holiday weekend. If you can try not to go into the hospital on a holiday weekend, try not coming out. Because if there's a problem, chances of getting anybody, bad. I needed to be prepared for any emergency or crisis that would arise. This was the July 4th weekend. It was extremely hot when I dropped you off the apartment. Okay, that is July 4th. So both of those dates are going to go back and forth, the 3rd and the 4th. I feared the short walk to the elevator would tire you out. There is a chapter about July 4th when I did bring him home, but that's okay. For now, just know July 3rd and July 4th are kind of running in together. So, it was extremely hot when I dropped you off at the apartment. I feared the short walk to the elevator would even tire you out. I'd always been overly protective, and the title Mother Hen certainly applied now. However, my fears vanished when I saw the look on your face as we walked through the door of our apartment together. You said, quote, B, that was his nickname for me. You said, B, it's the most beautiful home in the world. Thank you for loving me, end quote. You can't understand our marriage. I can't understand yours. It's the way it is. You said, B, it's the most beautiful home. Here's this guy's been so gravely ill for weeks. Been in the hospital dying. B, it's the most beautiful home in the world. Thank you for loving me. The artwork, pictures, and other treasured pieces from our travels were just as you remembered. I took so much out of the house, I put it all back just so he would think he was never gone. A large balloon bouquet with a welcome home banner hung from the ceiling fan. Fresh flowers were everywhere, and the house was filled with life, love, and happiness. To this day, I miss him. 30 years later, there'll only be one love in my life, and telling this story about it and making a series or a movie is the only way I'm going to rest one day, because he was the love of my life. He was my best friend. Dozens of cards were strung across the room. I worked hard. The refrigerator and pantry were stocked with your favorite foods. I couldn't believe that on Friday, July 3rd at 6 o'clock p.m. Oh, it was July 4th. We were dancing on the balcony. I'll get to that. I couldn't believe that on Friday, July 3rd at 6 p.m., you were sleeping in our bed. It looked like nothing ever happened, and you were on the road to recovery. You woke up groggy and disoriented, but when you came into the kitchen and asked, "What's for dinner?" quote, "What's for dinner?" end quote, I started to cry. I said, quote, "Cheeseburgers and candy bars made with real meat and chocolate," end quote. I was so strict with my diet, and he was strict, and he was very healthy, and what can I tell you? We started to do everything that we'd never done before. What's for dinner? Cheeseburgers and candy bars made with real meat and chocolate. We couldn't stop laughing because we were both so health conscious. And now I was thinking, quote, fat, end quote. I'd put 2 giant cheeseburgers, a baked potato with sour cream and butter, a salad with Russian dressing, and a Milky Way candy bar on your plate. I wanted this meal to be fun and special. You ate the Milky Way first. It was wonderful watching you do it. You looked at me and said, quote, "I think eating again will be fun," end quote. I said, quote, "You'll love putting those 20 pounds back on again," end quote. However, that was more difficult to do than we imagined. Sometimes you wanted to eat, then without notice you lost your appetite. Some medications had to be taken on an empty stomach, while others required food. In between your coughing spells, nausea, and diarrhea, it was difficult for you to gain and maintain your weight. I know there are many of you, maybe not hundreds and thousands watching for sure, but I know there are many of you who can relate to this right now, and you're going to relate more as we go along. Because if you've ever been through with your parents or your grandparents or someone you love or a good friend, you're going to know. Even my best friend, one of them who I went through cancer treatment with for a year, one minute she would eat, the next minute she was throwing up in the sink. She was throwing up. Well, you'll never can predict, but you have to do is the best you can do, and that's the advice I'll give you. And if you're going through it yourself, just listen and take notes, or get my book, and I'm telling you, you'll have a guide, because when I'm done with this book, I'm going on to my hospice book, and I'm going to tell you why I was so effective at hospice, because many of the people there could relate. I could relate to their issues. I'm just going to read a little more. I know it's a little late, so tune off and come in later. The 3 things you needed most were to eat, rest, and relax. Everything we did for the next few weeks revolved around those issues. Establishing a routine was not easy because there were many people involved with your care. Between your daily inhalation treatments, regularly scheduled visits from the home health personnel, laboratory pickups, the equipment and medication deliveries, we were always waiting for someone to arrive or something to be dropped off. If we were going to get our life back together, it was up to me to coordinate the appointments and familiarize myself with these matters. The phone situation was the first problem I had to deal with. Because you weren't sleeping well at night, you tired easily and were taking frequent naps during the day. The phone calls were constant and becoming annoying and disturbing. It was different when you took ill. I welcomed the support from family and friends, and their kindness and concern for us was exactly what I needed during those first 2 weeks. But now, the constant phone calls were waking you up, interrupting your treatments, and disturbing our meals. They were intruding on our private time together and disrupting your recovery. I was very adamant about the telephone situation and stressed what I felt was best for you. One more. We decided for the first few days, until we got organized, I would tell family and friends that when you were sleeping, I was taking the phone off the hook. Let me tell you again. We decided for the first few days, until we got organized, I would tell family and friends that when you were sleeping, I was taking the phone off the hook. If you had the energy after you woke up and wanted to speak with someone, that was up to you. If not, I would handle the phone calls myself. I had to be honest with everyone and stated that you needed this time to regain your strength. I couldn't be more specific because we were trying to get a routine established and our life back on track. I told your parents that I would call them twice a day and keep them informed about everything that was going on. They were the only ones who had, quote, carte blanche, end quote, to their son, and when you wanted them to visit, I picked them up. For several weeks, in order to maintain our privacy and conserve your energy, I felt it was my responsibility to handle the telephone situation. Eventually, you would have plenty of time for visitors and phone calls. That's when I'm going to stop, and I'm going to stop on Friday, and I will continue on Saturday. In the age of technology, things are very different. You have iPads and iPhones and laptops and other gadgets. Then I had a choice. Keep the phone on the hook and be interrupted constantly and have Jeffrey be interrupted, or take the phone off the hook. I guess today the same thing applies. You can put your phone on vibrate or silent, but I'm not dealing with today, folks. I'm dealing with 1992. These are choices I had to make back then. Now I don't want to talk to somebody. I put you on silent and I shove you under two pillows. You won't get to me. In that house, I had to be organized, prioritize, and think of one thing only. After I got him home, I had to take responsibility for our life and his well-being and his health. God gave me the strength. I could not be doing this at 75. I feel very badly for women and men who are up there in years, whether they be 60, 70, 80, 90, and their spouse or their child has to go through a long-term illness or something like that. I could not do it today without excessive amounts of help. I can barely, on some days, take care of me. I'm in therapy half the time for my shoulder or my knee or my hip, and though I do look good, you never know. Yes, sidebar. But to take care of someone when you get older is much more challenging. I was only 48, and I was 46, 7 when he took ill. And I had the strength. I'd been bodybuilding. I was nutrition. I was always into health and wellness. I never had a cold. I never had a sniffle. I never ached anywhere. I never had. Maybe I didn't even have the time to think about it. But I was very healthy, very strong, and was able to manage. So if there's one thing today I would say to take away, it is that if you're not an organized person, start getting organized. If you don't know your priorities, get a piece of paper, get off the phone, and get off your computer, start writing. Get a piece of paper and take a pen. It's called a pen, and write. Get a notebook, get a pen. Prioritize. 1, 2, the positive. Make a list out of what you know your strong suits are, what you have to do. You can become your own best friend. You can become a caregiver. You can become someone who will go through challenges that you never know the strength you're going to get. You will get the strength to get through something if you set yourself up for getting through it, as well as the setbacks, because that's life. Life is 2 steps forward, a little bit back. Sometimes it's 2 back, 3 forward. You will always go forward more than you'll go backwards, but it may not always seem that way. It is a half an hour later, and I'm going to say thank you. I still haven't figured viewers and view out. I don't care. I know new people are coming on, and I know I'm losing a few, and I don't really, that's wonderful. I know this has been the greatest, this is probably one of the greatest experiences in my life, keeping me disciplined and organized and prioritizing that at 5:30, I'm going to do this. And you'll have it on my Facebook page as long as I want, which is probably going to be a long time. So it's on my Facebook page. My story they keep up for 24 hours, thank you. But I just say I'm grateful. I'm blessed. And on this Shabbat, may you have, you know what I'm going to say, shalom, hello, shalom, goodbye. I love this. I feel like I'm getting a Botox treatment. Shalom, hello, shalom, goodbye, and shalom, peace. May you have peace tonight and know that you are strong. You're a lot stronger than you may give yourself credit for. I believe in that. And anyway, yes, you may, Stephanie. Just do it on my, yes, you may, but do it on Facebook. And don't say your name. I don't know how you do it, but send it to me. Or write, do something. If anybody has a request, just send it to me. I can always delete it if it's personal. It's not like the whole world's watching yet, but they're going to. Yes, they are. And one of you is going to be the one that does it. God bless you all. Shalom. I'm going to finish up. There's 2 parts of this I love. One when I put the lightning on, and the other when I say finish. And of course later when I watch myself. God bless you all.